Hello again, and welcome back to week 34 of year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 3. We're continuing our way through the Gospel of John, and we're in the midst of the account of the Lord's crucifixion. So last time we saw Jesus crucified, and we read the description of the soldiers dividing his garments among them and casting lots for his tunic. We noted that the inclusion of this detail functions something like a tag, confirming and cross-referencing the accounts of the other evangelists who all emphasize this or other elements that are prophesied in Psalm 21/22, which is the one that begins, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This time we will see what else happens while Jesus is on the cross and what his final words are. So this is verse 25b. "Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, 'Woman, here is your son.' Then he said to the disciple, 'Here is your mother.' And from that hour the disciple took her to his own," or into his own home, but that's anyway. "After this, when Jesus knew that all was now finished, he said, in order to fulfill the scripture, 'I am thirsty.' A jar full of sour wine was standing there, so they put a sponge full of the wine on a branch of hyssop and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the wine, he said, 'It is finished.' Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Since it was the day of preparation, the Jews did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, especially because that Sabbath was a day of great solemnity. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of the crucified men broken and the bodies removed. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately there came out blood and water. He who saw this has borne witness, and his testimony is true. He has testified so that you may believe his testimony is true. He knows that he tells the truth. These things occurred so that the scripture might be fulfilled, 'None of his bones shall be broken.' And again, another passage of scripture says, 'They will look on the one whom they have pierced.'" Now, this is a very short passage. It took us less than 2.5 minutes to read it. But there's a great deal going on here. I don't want to try to say everything. First of all, I want to give credit. I was just recently listening to Father Stephen DeYoung's his Bible study, his recording on this, and his whole Counsel of God podcast. And I was very struck by a number of things that he said. So let's just go through the list. First of all, the passage where Jesus, as we usually consider it, when he gives his mother into the care of the beloved disciple, that is to say, of John. The suggestion that Father Stephen makes, is that that's not actually what's happening here. Because Jesus knows he's rising from the dead. He knows that his mother will be well cared for by even his stepbrothers, however poorly they've been caring for her before. He knows that they will be pious and faithful. However, up to this point, Jesus has always referred to, he's always addressed his mother as woman. Even at the very beginning, when she, at the beginning of the Gospel of John, when she urges him to do something about the wine at the wedding at Cana, he says, "Woman, what is this to you and to me?" So he's always calling her woman. This is the first time that Jesus speaks of her and as mother, which is odd. So Father Stephen connects this with the book of Genesis, where up to the point of after the expulsion from Eden, the wife of Adam is actually never called by a name. She's just called woman, which in Hebrew is Isha. And it's only after she gives birth that she is called Eve, because she is the mother of all living. So the suggestion is that this is actually a mirror image, a fulfillment, because as Eve, becoming the mother of all living, is also the mother of evil, because that child that she had first is Cain, who is the first murderer, who brings that greater evil into the world. Even so, even as the Lord is dying, his mother, who he has always called woman, and we speak of her as the second Eve, the one who gets it right, he calls her mother the mother of his disciple, or at least the one who was there, and then by extension the mother of all of us, the mother of all living. And I think this is a beautiful image, a beautiful picture. It certainly reflects how we honor and venerate the Mother of God in the Church, and it reflects how she cares for us through her intercessions and overshadowing, and has since this time. So, anyway, what else can we say? What else should we say? Let's see. It's important to understand why they're breaking the legs of the people who are crucified. Crucifixion was a torture, and it functioned as a torture because although it would kill you, it was a slow death. It was a death by exhaustion because you'd not be able to breathe hanging from your arms like this, so you'd have to press up with your legs to be able to get a deeper breath. But then that wears out your legs and your feet are nailed to the cross, so you eventually, out of the agony, collapse again, and then you can't breathe. So it's a matter of up and down until you simply have no strength left. Breaking the legs means that immediately they're collapsing completely and will asphyxiate. They'll drown. They'll suffocate, not being able to breathe. But Jesus is already dead, and it's important we note Jesus is not dead because he is weak. He is dead because he, as everything that happens to him on the cross, he does of his own free will. Jesus doesn't, his life is not taken from him. He gives up his spirit. And then we have to note that when he says it is finished, this is on the 6th day of the week. This is the point when he actually completes the work that he said before in where was it? In John. I didn't make a note of it. There was that point earlier in the Gospel of John where Jesus is attacked for working on the Sabbath day, for healing on the Sabbath day, and he says, "My Father is still working, and I am still working." But now, he says, it is finished. Now the work is done. Now the creation is complete. Now, indeed, everything is very good. He gives up his spirit, and he rests on the Sabbath day. So, and finally, we have to note that the bit about the piercing of his side, which is the clear sign that he is truly dead. This is what we read during the preparation of the gifts of communion. Every time we do a liturgy, the priest will take the lance, the pointy symbolic spear. He'll pierce the upper right side of the bread that is the lamb, which will be consecrated as the body of the Lord. And as he says, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a lance, and then he'll continue, and immediately there came out blood, and he'll pour the wine into the chalice, and water, and he'll pour a little water into the chalice. So this passage is deeply embedded in the liturgical life of the Church. Anyway, that's probably enough for today. Next week is Holy Week, as well as week 35, so we'll see you then as we read through all of these things in the services, and then see what comes next. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.